And we have an esteemed show this week of Crush Mics. I have a great guest this week. We have the well-renowned, well, world travel. Let's say this guy has been everywhere, has met some of everybody, and man, we're just so happy to have Mr. Matt Caputo on the show today to give us a little bit of insight into the great things he's been doing. And let's see what else we might be able to talk about. I think he has some great people that he's met, some places that he's been that none of us regular people can say we've done anything like that. Let's just welcome Mr. Caputo to the show.
Corey, how are you? Thanks for having
Man,
me.
we thank you so much. We
Oh,
thank
the
you so much for
applause.
being on,
Great.
man. You are a long time friend and family of the show.
That's
We thought
right.
it was only right to get you on the show so we could talk about some of those great things you're doing, man, and some of those great things you've done in the past.
Awesome, man. Awesome. We go back probably over 20, 25, close to 25
Oh
years
man,
now,
we don't need
man.
to date ourselves here.
20 years, but we're getting there, right? Yeah, we've
No,
been
we know.
around.
We definitely are. We definitely are. You've done some incredible things in your history here. From basketball to music endeavors to real estate endeavors, and you've met some everybody on the face of the globe. One of the most interesting stories that I know of, or that I know a little bit about, a lot of the fans and listeners of the show, they don't know about your experience working at Slam Magazine. And just to give some of our listeners, some of our younger listeners, some context, when we were kids, Slam Magazine was like a Bible for basketball players. Anybody from, I'd say, about sixth grade all the way through high school, college, NBA, Slam Magazine was your Bible. You had friends that were in the magazine, you had family that was in the magazine, you had all kinds of people, great athletes here, there, everywhere that were in this magazine. And if you could be in this magazine, you were somebody. Like you were genuinely somebody if you could be in this magazine. You had the opportunity of actually working with Slam Magazine. What was that like?
Yeah, yeah. It was an experience that stayed with me for a long time. I worked there for 2 years as full time, and I was kind of associated with the magazine maybe for a better part of like 10 years. I think I'm still listed on Wikipedia as a notable editor of Slam Magazine.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so, uh, yeah, I think that that's one of my claims to fame. But it was an interesting path for me. Corey, you and I go back, I think, to when my path kind of diverted a little bit away from basketball at the time. I was always from from a certain age, like around junior high school, I was a big reader, and you know, I ended up going to high school and kind of like not really pursuing the playing part. And then I had a friend who was on your team at McClancy High School, who
Shout
my
out to
friend
them.
McClancy, uh, Nelson Tripp, actually, was like one of my buddies from home, and he was kind of like, "Yo, dude, like you know everything about basketball. You should be the manager and like help us out. We really need like another guy." And I basically kind of agreed to like go to every game, but hardly ever practice. But
Right.
well, but in that time, maybe I thought I would work like as a GM or something, or get into the kind of the world of basketball in terms of the front office and maybe some of the marketing side of professional basketball. But then I kind of went on the writing path for a good 6 or 7 years there,
Oh,
where
wow.
I really didn't do much related to basketball. I mean, I did some, but I really didn't do much related to basketball for like a good while. I mean, uh, I was always obviously my brother was assistant coach and college basketball coach and I would follow him around. So I would like tag along with him, but those were in his very, very early stages before he even got his first coaching job. So I would be going to ABCD camp and 5 Star and just kind of making the scene. Being 4 years younger, I wasn't expected to play. So I'm
Right.
just, yeah, I'm like kind of like a little kid kind of watching and taking everything in. And as we spoke about last week, I had a great relationship with the late Tom Konchowski, who passed away last
Rest
week.
in peace to the great Tom Kinchowski, unbelievable high school scout, straight across the board.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I had a relationship with Tom going back to like 11 years old or maybe 10
Wow.
years old.
Wow.
So I kind of knew who he was and he knew who I was from those early stages. And when I got to Slam, it was all by chance. I'm sure some of your listeners, your viewers are gonna know Double XL magazine and
Of
all that.
course, of course.
So at the time back in the day, Double XL Slam, it was all under one umbrella. It was under the Harris Publications umbrella. And let me tell you, like I went to I went to small college. I went to SUNY Purchase and I kind of studied journalism there. And when I got out of school, I think this was like one of the I mean, listen, I wouldn't trade my time there. I worked on 2 magazines there. I was there for about 3 years. One of them, I'm sure you're going to remember, definitely needs some automated claps for King Magazine. I worked at King
King
Magazine.
Magazine. Oh my gosh, not King. Do you know the vixens we've seen in King Magazine? What?
Oh my God, yeah. I want to give a
Who
shout
did you?
out
Okay, so we got to pause. Who did you actually see
Vita
from King
Guerrera,
Magazine, The Spread?
Vita Guerrera.
Oh my,
Uh,
Vita Guerrero. Vita,
Definitely
Vita
working
Guerrero.
uh working um working on that level was really cool. I got to sit next to a guy. I've always got to give him props. Listen, I got the job there through a great guy named Matt Barone, who was one of the best writers and the smartest guys there. But I got to sit next to the King Magazine girl guy, and
What?
his name is Sean Malcolm, and we shared a cubicle together for my time there. And Sean's he's a really bright guy and a really cool dude, and we shared a cubicle together, and I definitely got to experience a lot of the model. Believe it or not, man, it took me a lot of places because once I had that experience down, that opened me up to freelancing for Vibe.
Whoa! Who did you meet at Vibe? Did you meet any rappers at Vibe?
No, but I was just freelancing for Vibe. So I was working in the Harris offices, and Vibe was like a standalone product at the time, or they were with like one other magazine. I don't quite remember. And I was freelancing for them, and all the stuff I was doing was over the phone. But I think you'll like this story.
Wow.
One of the stories I did was a guy by the name of Chris Yuskovich, a really smart editor there, came up with this awesome package about mostly urban celebrities and that type of thing who were into bowling, and the
What?
whole the whole package was about bowling. I didn't write the whole thing, but he knew that I was an NBA dude, and like at that time I was mixing with a lot of people, and I interviewed Chris Paul, and Chris
What?
Paul
What was
is a
the
hell of a
Chris
bowler.
Paul interview like?
Dude, he's an amazing bowler. He's a professional level bowler,
Shout out to
and
Chris Paul.
he was a really cool guy. As a matter of fact, um, I'm almost positive that while I was on the phone with him, I think it was.
Don't
I
say
don't
it.
want to. I don't
Don't
want to
say
say.
LeBron
No,
called.
no, 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 no. It was the owner of the team, but I don't.
Was it the Hornets?
It was the Hornets, but I don't think it was Clay Bennett. I think it was the
Okay.
man who owned it before Clay Bennett.
Okay.
Who owned
We
that
don't know
team
who Clay
before.
Bennett is either on the show anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Clay Bennett's the guy who owns the
No
Thunder.
disrespect to Clay Bennett, but we don't know. I'm sorry. We don't pay attention to owners.
So
Not unless you're polar.
so I did that story for Vibe. That was cool. But shortly after that, I just kind of wanted to make a more full time move and be kind of more integrated into the staff. So I left King and I moved down the hall, and I had two really awesome years that I wouldn't trade for the world at Slam Magazine. And I worked closely with the editor there, Ben Osborne. And I also worked closely with the publisher, who I just recently spoke to last week, Dennis Page. He's another guy, man. Like, you know, people probably will never give Slam the credit that it deserves, but it's the way it's existed for so long with the blessing of the NBA and the cooperation. Like, there's no other sport other than the Hockey News, which has been around forever. Also, there's no other sports magazine that stands alone, that's not part of a huge media. First of all, there are no magazines owned by huge media companies anymore, because magazines don't make a ton of money. But
Right.
Slam, they've been operating with such a good relationship with the NBA for years. And let me tell you something. I personally exposed some issues. Oh, just while I was working at Slam, just scratching the surface. I did a really in-depth story with Booger. I did a really,
What? Wow. Oh, see, yeah, now you touched something. So I just recently saw an interview that was done with a guy named Queens Flip on Booger Smith.
I saw that too.
So that was a pretty interesting interview, because he said a lot of interesting things in the fact that I kind of, being a Queens kid, I kind of didn't like the part about him being better than Ray for Austin, which I didn't think he was. But it was pretty interesting to see how the guy went from pretty much on the top of the mountain to pretty much the basement. And it was by some of the decisions that he made growing up. I thought that was a pretty interesting story for kids to see, to know that you could come from the point of being bigger than players who have been in the NBA Finals. Shamgard, who is revered as having one of the best handles in the history of the game of basketball in recent time. At one time, Booger Smith was greater than both of these athletes, at least in the New York City scene. So to see where he is now is really sad. What was your experience like when you interviewed Mr. Booger Smith?
Well, somebody, believe it or not, somebody recently posted that. I don't know if they posted the story. They may have just posted the cover on a good Instagram account for Slam Magazine fans. It's called
Oh wow!
Slam Archive, and they post past articles and pictures and stuff. But uh, two things really stand out about that story. First of all, Atiba Jefferson shot the photos. Atiba Jefferson he was Kobe's like personal photographer. He was the Lakers team
Wait, wait, wait,
photographer.
wait, wait. Did you say Hogan?
Kobe.
Oh, Kobe. No. Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow.
So Atiba Jefferson, he's actually in a commercial for Fanatics right now. Atiba is. He's in a commercial.
Wow.
He's in that commercial where it's like he's like the cool looking dude at the end in the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, or Broncos maybe shirt. It's a Fanatics commercial. He's a great photographer. He shot that. He shot that those those photos right in the middle of the projects. And I brought my cousin down because I needed my cousin to take some pics. So he was there, and we all took a picture together with Booger. And two things stand out about my meeting with Booger. The first thing is I absolutely love the guy.
Oh,
Let me tell you.
awesome,
Let
awesome,
me let
awesome.
me tell you something. Let me tell you something about Booger. when Booger when Booger wants to be, he's the coolest guy in the world. The coolest dude. He I know he has a daughter. He loves his daughter, but he's a cool dude, and he'll be real with you. He was real. He was real with me with a lot of things that happened to him, but I think it was also a real lack of supervision in his life, a real lack of probably
Just support from like older people that could
rein
help him make better decisions.
like a lot of kids, Corey. He needed a lot of and it's a lot of kids who need this, but he needed a lot of reinforcement, not just at home, but he needed a lot of reinforcement academically. He was at Westinghouse. He was like all team second city at Westinghouse with barely going to school, like as a sophomore or junior or something like that. They get him into the junior college. He kind of, he's not, he's not a big guy. And I think ultimately what happened with him was you had a lack of leadership. Do I think he could have been in the NBA? It's really hard to say with Booger. It's hard to say.
But he could, but I don't know. It's a funny thing. Soul in a hole, every single highlight I've seen of him. He's the first athlete in the history of life before I met Ben Simmons. Well, I can't even say Ben Simmons because I've actually seen him try. That I've seen so much footage of, and I've literally never seen him attempt a jump shot. I have no idea what his jump shot form would look like.
Exactly.
Outside of him shooting a free throw.
He would get to the basket and pass. Like he'd be right next to the basket sometimes and pass too. He did a lot of crazy things. One thing that I want to say very quickly is that, with social media and everybody's got a cell phone, this guy is the last urban legend. Right. I remember talking to, I'm sure you're going to remember Justin Wilson from Malloy.
Of course, the great Justin Wilson.
Justin Wilson
From
Justin
Archbishop Malloy that went to the University of Baltimore County.
Maryland County, yeah.
Yes, excellent. Shout out to Goose.
I remember the Goose.
Friend of the show.
I remember one time talking to the Goose, and he was like a Brooklyn type of dude, and he'd been around, and he had seen Booger play. I'm talking about in the 90s. And one thing that he did say, back then was I'll never forget what he said. He said, at will, he scores at will. So it's like, if he wanted to score, he could score, but mostly, he loved breaking guys down and making a quick no-look pass. And I think that's part of urban legend, even though the crazy thing is this, right? Even though there's a documentary about the guy that's 25 years old now.
So
he's still more of an urban legend. It's unbelievable, And the other thing that I can say about him is, because I did spend a lot of time with him, like I did, I met up with him a few times, and we did one part of the interview we did at Junior's Cheesecake.
Oh wow! Shout out to Junior's in Brooklyn, some of the best cheesecake on the face of the planet.
On the avenue over
gosh.
there. And one thing I'll remember about meeting Booger there that day. He was with a buddy of his, and the guy, they had aspirations of doing a book and aspirations of doing a second follow-up documentary about his life. The problem was, Corey, the problem was there just wasn't a lot of footage of what happened after. When you do a documentary, you're sometimes invested 2 and 3 years of just shooting. I've been involved with a few documentaries. You sometimes shoot for 2 or 3 years before you start cutting anything.
Wow. Yeah, because you don't know what you're gonna need. You don't know what direction it's
gonna be. Yeah, you don't know.
Right.
And I think what people don't understand is that anything that anybody would do now, unless there's a ton of footage, I think he played. I'm not 100% sure, but there are newspaper clippings and stuff. He played in some of the. I think he played in the IBA in Rochester, Minnesota briefly, and that was like a double A league, whereas the old CBA was like a triple A league. And I think he played in the CBA for a minute with Steven Jackson. I think they were in
Oh
Wisconsin.
wow! Shout out to
Maybe
Steve Jackson, man.
maybe they were in Wisconsin. And I could just tell you, I could definitely tell you this though. Booger, and I think he'd be the first one to tell you, Booger had a substance abuse problem that was uncontrollable at times.
Bad, man.
And it cost him probably whatever he would have been able to do to gain financially from basketball. You know what I mean? Like when we did that interview at Junior's Cheesecake, he ordered like a cheeseburger deluxe, and it was a big plate, and there was French fries, and there was a pickle and all that good stuff. And all he did was drink a glass of whiskey, like a big tall pour of whiskey. And he kind of sipped. He didn't really get smashed up over it, but he kind of just sipped that and stared at his food.
Wow.
And I remember putting that in the story. Listen, anything good that happens to Booger Smith, I'd really be glad to hear it. He's a phenomenal guy, the nicest guy. He was super real in the interview. He wasn't blaming a lot of people. I mean, he did have a couple of tough breaks.
So did he? Did sorry to cut you off, but I have a question because he did play with a guy that made it to the NBA who was also with him in Soul in the Hole, Charles Jones, who played at LIU, who played in the NBA a few years. I know he played for the Bulls and a few different teams. Did he ever talk about how it was that Charles Jones, who played with them, made it to those ranks, and he, with all the skill and all the ability, didn't make it?
I would have to go back and check the story for the exact quote, but I talked to Charles Jones for that particular story. Charles Jones is probably my favorite New York City college basketball player. He
used to get 25, 30 at will.
He led the country in scoring 2 years in a row for LIU.
Charles Jones was a beast.
The guy was unbelievable. And I'll tell you a few things real quick. I just think that Charles, kind of felt like, Booger didn't get that. I just kind of remember kind of getting the sense that maybe he felt like Booger didn't get the right help and the right people weren't. And listen, Booger
why didn't he help him? He was around him. He actually went to college. He couldn't help him at all.
You got to remember, these guys are kids and they're coming up in a tough New York City at the time, and they're getting chances to get out. Booger's academically ineligible. I mean, he's not going to school. So Charles Jones, who's getting recruited, he plays 2 years at Rutgers before going on to LIU Brooklyn. With a guy like Charles Jones, I just, I think a lot of people tried to help him, and one thing that you learn about basketball players is that, that there are, not everybody can shoot a basketball consistently.
Right.
Not everybody can gain the opportunity for someone really wanting to be invested in helping them. I've seen dudes, Korey, in my life, and God bless every single one of them. Hold on a second.
Crush mics first.
I'm sorry. Where are we? I've seen guys that in their career came out of jail, and because they could play a little bit and they wanted a second chance, there was a coach or somebody there willing to help them. Not everybody gets that, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
That's the
so
truth. That's the
I,
truth. Look at
I,
AI. He balled his way out of jail literally in high school.
dude, you see it all the time. You see it all the time, even in like the CUNY JUCO League. You see guys that are coming out of Rikers Island trying to make a better life for themselves, trying to get in college. Maybe a good thing for them would be involved with basketball. So, what I can tell you is that uh, Booger was a talented guy that just couldn't seem to get out of his own way. And let me tell you something too. Another thing that a lot of people don't want to hear today, and I firmly believe it. Hold on a second. How do I mute this for a second?
As always, very busy guy, world travel. We are fortunate to
So
have him for a few seconds.
I'm a barely a world traveler, but the thing about Booger was is that another thing that I wanted to mention is that listen, once you have young people that have been caught up in the legal system, it becomes very tough for those people to get back into society and I mean even get a job. Booger
Right.
problem once you get locked up and you have trouble with the law, it's probably easier to go back to school and play basketball than it is to even get a job.
Right. No, seriously.
So that was what I thought with Booger. We had a I had a really I had a really uh I had to really dig deep when I was writing that one because I felt like Booger would always be kind of misunderstood, especially as the internet grew and everybody's trying to do all these tricks and shit. I mean, we're talking about a guy who literally became a legend on the streets of New York City, written about in every magazine that ever mattered about basketball. I mean, every serious New York publication has written something about Booger Smith. He is a legend. Just to be as close to him as I was really intense. And I'm gonna. I want to go in very quickly, and then maybe we could do a part two of this sometime because we
Oh
didn't even
yeah,
cover this.
we definitely gonna have you back on the show to
But
talk about a lot of things.
but tomorrow, if tomorrow's the 20th, uh, it would be one story I want to tell before I let you go. It's so fitting. I think it's going to be the 10th anniversary. I'm pretty sure it's 10 or it's 11 years maybe that Troy Escalade Jackson passed away.
Oh man, yeah,
Yeah,
man. Great Queens legend, brother of Mark Jackson.
uh,
For those of you who don't know, was an incredible basketball player. He played high school basketball, he played college basketball, and very well known for his years that he played at with the N1.
yeah.
He was an incredible guy, a great personality.
Let me tell you something. I'm glad we're doing this interview, and I hope that anybody who listens, they look up who he was because we gotta always honor. This guy was on. Let me just tell you something. This guy was unbelievable. The type of individual that Troy was unbelievable, unbelievable. He was the nicest guy to me, and oh, I got some pictures of me and him. I'm glad we're doing this interview because it's going to remind me to post every year. I post a picture of me and him since he passed. Uh, we just had a lot of conversations together. The N1. This is stuff that nobody in the public knows. Is that we had a lot of conversations together when the N1 show was going to start falling apart.
Oh
I
wow.
I was at the last couple of real End One events. So
Oh man, we got to hear a little bit of this.
I was at the one in Philly. So these were
Hey yo.
AO was there. Wow, Aaron Owens. So so we were at now technically it probably wasn't the last one. This was the last one where it was like a real production, like a tour production. They did something else, and then they had Ball Up and all this other shit was going on. But we had gone down. The whole story is crazy. Me and my Dominican boy Benji used to be like my sidekick. We used to go everywhere together. I used to have camera. Shout out to Benji. But we used to go everywhere. And one time we went down to Philadelphia. A lot of people don't know N1 is born in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
It's let me tell you something. Even in those years when N1 came to town, it was a big deal. I'm telling you, it was a big deal. When we went to the N1 game that year, and it was like 2008 or 2000, yeah, probably 2008, you know, and I'm telling you right now, bro, they were lined up outside to get into Temple's gym. And it was just amazing, dude. Like the local guys were out there. I can't think of the other guy who kind of played in the NBA for a minute that came down. It's so
Marty Collins?
No. Somebody. No, Marty Collins might have been in the league at the time, so I don't think he could have come down. But there was maybe Jerome Allen came down.
And he's from Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Right.
So AO and the professor, I was boys with the professor, and I still consider him a friend. We don't talk as, we don't keep
Grayson. Shout out to Grayson.
Shout out to G. A lot of my Queens people are going to be hyped to know that I brought the professor to Cherry Valley one time at like 1 o'clock in the morning, Cherry Valley Deli in Whitestone.
What? Big shout out to Cherry Valley.
Yeah, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I took he's like, yo, this is the shit.
Tell the people that are not abreast on what Cherry Valley is for the show, what Cherry Valley is and how great that food is.
Cherry Valley is a 24. As a matter of fact, I had it Tuesday night. Cherry Valley is a 24-hour deli in Queens, in Whitestone, Queens, and
yes.
the big thing that they're mostly known for is the TCS on a roll, which is chicken cutlet, brown gravy, and mozzarella. I get it with mozzarella. Some people get it with American.
Cherry Valley.
But
Cherry Valley.
I brought Grayson there, but
Grayson was actually in South Jamaica on one episode of the N1. He was off of Liberty Avenue at Murdoch. He was off of Murdoch at OCP Park, which is a very legendary park in Queens. Shout out to everybody that lives in Hollis, the same area that LL and Run DMC and everybody's from. He was in there doing one of the episodes of N1 hooping out against the locals. Yeah, Grayson's official.
No, he's a great, really, really great dude. Super, super duper humble, super duper like well thought out, super duper gracious. He was in like a movie at the time. We had a lot going on with him. He was in like a movie at the time. He actually did pretty well in the movie. The movie wasn't anything too special, but he actually did pretty well with what it was. And he was playing in the CBA when the CBA was kind of folding up. And,
I didn't even know that. That's interesting. Wow.
He was playing in the CBA when the CBA was folding up. Kenny Anderson was the coach in Atlanta.
Who knew that? Kenny Anderson was the coach.
Right, yeah. I think they were called the Atlanta Crunk or something like that. They lasted.
You know what? I briefly remember a little bit of this team that you're talking about.
Something, I forget who else was on the team. Somebody notable. But long story short, as far as Escalade goes, man, the guy was just the greatest guy, man. We had a bunch of long talks, and we had a really long talk that day before the game started, like just sitting on the court talking about like maybe what he would do, like maybe what would he do, moving on from this. And he was hoping that maybe he'd get involved coaching with his brother. And he expressed that to me. He also, dude, at the time he was, and I don't care who hears this. At the time he was a household name. It sounds crazy, but the the internet wasn't as big. We weren't watching personalities all day on our cell phones. So what ultimately happened was is a guy like him who was getting so much reality show TV time, and he was related to an NBA player, and everybody at Madison Square Garden knew him to begin with from his brother, and for dude, he played for Denny Crum for a year or two. I think he went to JUCO, and then he played for Louisville for a year or two. He was a fan favorite down
Yeah,
there.
he did play for Louisville. Yes.
Dude, let me tell you something. They loved him down there in Louisville. I was down in Louisville one Easter Sunday while I was at Slam, and there was they used to do this. It was called the Derby Classic or something like that, and they had like a bet.
It's Derby exactly. They have to.
Really,
It's for the races in
yeah,
Kentucky.
it was Peyton Siva and a few of those kids were
Oh,
involved
Peyton
in
was
it.
tough. Peyton was
Yeah,
tough.
yeah, he could play. And they did it at like the old Louisville gym, and it was cool. It was cool or whatever. But they loved him down there. Like I sat next to some
Wasn't
local.
Terrence Williams on that team with the crazy bounce?
It's possible. It's so long ago now. I can't quite remember. But I can tell you that I sat down to some local photographer, like a local guy that shot basketball games like in his spare time or something. And that guy was like, "Oh, Troy Jackson, everybody loved him. Everybody would cheer when he got in the game. Everybody would cheer when he
Oh
scored, you know?"
wow.
So like I remember people, just having an affinity for him, and we were the same way. We had a lot of deep convos about maybe him losing weight and maybe him doing a campaign around it, and
Oh
we
wow.
we had a lot of talks, but let me just tell you, he was an encouraging, good dude. I always say he needed a body that big to hold his heart. He was just a
Oh
big
wow.
he was
Wow.
just a he
Wow.
was just a
Wow.
big time guy, dude.
That's
He
just an incredible compliment.
now
I've
I
never heard anything like that.
There
That's
was so
incredible.
much. You got to remember, man, like at this time, the magazine business was still popping. Double XL was popping in those years, bro. It was right after all the beef mixtape, all the beef DVDs and all this shit that was
Oh
going on, that
yeah.
mixtape era, all that stuff was going on. And Double XL, King Magazine, Scratch Magazine, Slam Magazine, we're all under one roof. We're all under one roof. And I
Wow.
I
Wow.
left out my ascension kind of started, believe it or not. See, like I was trying to get a job at Harris, and I eventually did, but to get a job at Harris, I kind of had to go to work at the Source for a few months. Uh
Wow.
yeah, and I worked at the Source for like 6 months. It was really a mess. The magazine was in big trouble. We like dudes were just shooting dice and getting haircuts in the office and
What?
shit. Yeah, like it was
Shout out to the source being super hood.
it was pretty crazy. We had like our office manager get like arrested one day or some shit like that. Yeah, it was really, really down and
They were
dirty
really
in
the
there.
source for
Oh
a lot
my,
of
oh
things
my
other than
God.
music.
Forget it, dude. I think the guy shot somebody or something like
Good
that.
Lord.
Like we had but it was great. I'll tell you a couple of things that stick out. Um, I had a lot of fun working at the Source. Again, it was different times. The media was smaller. These artists weren't on Instagram all day. They weren't on
Right.
Facebook all day. So, you're getting a little more behind the scenes. I was one of the first things I did was transcribe an interview with Method Man where
Whoa, gotta hear this.
our Method Man's like my favorite rapper. One of my favorite rapper is Cool G Rap. Uh,
Shout out to that.
uh,
Cool G
but
Rap, great Queens gangster rapper. We
but
wouldn't have the Notorious Big partially if
you
it
wouldn't have a
wasn't for
lot of
having
shit.
Cool G Rap.
Oh, it's dude. I
Cool G
told G
Rap is
Rap.
gangster rap. Like when we talk about and celebrate NWA for being in the forefront of gangster rap, we got to talk about artists like Cool G Rap as being
Oh,
a part of
forget
that
it.
same wave.
let me tell you something. I met Cool G Rap for the first time backstage at the Yo MTV Raps anniversary.
Yo MTV Raps. Oh my gosh.
I was
What
I
a
was
classic hip hop show.
I was backstage, and there was a bunch of rappers back there, bro. There was everybody. And shout out to Royal Flush who brought me back there. My homie,
Great Queens artist,
my
Royal Flush.
good my good friend for 20 years. But what I was gonna say is, I go back there and I see G Rap, and you know, for me, to me, G Rap is a fucking goat, man. Like I don't know a lot about this
Shout
whole
out to
shit,
that.
but I go up to him and I want to get a quick pic with him, so I take a quick pic with G Rap and I tell him, I was like, I put it to him like this, Corey. I was like, listen, bro, I promised myself if I ever met you, I would tell you, you're the greatest rapper who ever lived. And he got geeked up, bro. He got
Shout
geeked
out to
up.
that.
He got geeked up. Oh,
What did he say?
he's like, yo, appreciate that. He was the man, bro. He was a good dude, bro.
G Rap, man,
I,
man.
lo-
Shout out to G Rap, man.
I
Shout out
love
to
I
G
I
Rap.
love meeting that guy. But I'll tell you something. Where the when I was at the source, yeah, the first thing was I was working. I was transcribing a Method Man interview, and uh, during the Method Man interview, the editor, a guy by the name of Bill Heinzelman, he was a writer of the story. It was right before 421 the day after came out. And that shit was, to me, that shit was bonkers, son. That shit was banging. And and the editor, Bill Heinzelman, has to tells Method Man that Double XL just came out like yesterday morning or that morning, and they gave his shit an L.
What?
And Method Man got so mad he hangs up,
This
even
is an
though
exclusive here on Crush Mike.
yeah,
They gave Method Man, the legendary Wu Tang lyricist, an L
they gave
in
him an
their
L,
review.
and they didn't, that shit to me was at least an XL, and 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 ultimately what happened there was I'm not 100% sure, but don't quote. I'm gonna say it, but don't quote me on this because I'm pretty sure it was the case. It was either the end of the year or it was a couple of years later. Double XL made a list of albums that they felt they graded wrong.
And they put that in there.
And they put that in there. They also put one of my favorite most slept
Shout out to
on.
Double XL.
They also put one of my favorite down south albums, super slept on album, C Murders Trapped in Crime. They
Shout
went
out to
like
C Murder.
they went like two sizes up on that shit. They went from like a medium to an XL. They were like, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave you with this one. There was a lot of good stories at the source. I interviewed Fat Joe. I
Wow.
interviewed I interviewed
Legendary. Fat Joe.
really
Dope Joe.
dope, really dope basketball head Sadat X. Sadat X.
Love
He
Sadat X. Great guy. Great guy.
he he
Incredible
played it.
lyricist.
Which is the one that's in DC, Corey? Is it Howard?
Yes.
He played at Howard. He played at Howard.
Wow. Educational. Who knew Sadat X played at Howard?
He played for like a year or two at Howard, and then he went to another smaller school. He might have transferred from like Howard to Morris Brown or something like that.
Wow.
Something. So I'm not 100% sure, but he definitely played at Howard for a year or two. I forgot where he went after that, but I think he was getting a little too wild. But just I'm gonna let you go after this. But the last story I'll tell is, just that whole experience. For me, kind of always being involved in basketball, always being involved in music a little through my dad, always being involved in just kind of being a communicator and a connector for a lot of people. Working up at Harris Publications was awesome, and I think that the story,
Shout
I
out to
met
the
a,
Harris
you know,
Publications.
I met a lot of cool people up there, and especially a lot of great athletes and sports. I mean, dude, you know, Dwayne Wade, Coach K, the list goes
D
on.
Wade, Coach K, legend.
Yeah, the list really does go on. But one of the coolest like little things that ever happened was this will be my last story because I gotta go eat. I gotta go eat something. But so Foot Locker used to have this event. I think it was called On Our Feet or something like that. Something like that. And I'll never forget because a while I had this shirt from that night. It was like a flannel shirt, like a black flannel shirt with the logo on it. But uh it was at I'm pretty sure it was at the Russian tea room
Oh
and
wow.
and we get to the top of the like I go in, everybody has to wear a suit. Like it's actually like kind of like a black tie optional event, but everybody wears a suit and everybody comes after work, and it's a big fundraiser. Like Slam buys, X amount of tickets for their employees, and they bring their employees. And I'm a young punk. I'm feeling myself.
A
I
young
got a
punk.
I got a suit on, I'm going into I'm about to go into the Russian tea room, So of course I got my fucking head down and I'm looking at my phone because it's 2005 and it's 2007 and you got to look at your phone to look smart, right? So we go all the way up and I'm looking at my phone the whole time. I swear to God.
What?
And we get off the elevator and I put my head up, and standing in front of me is Chuck Liddell and Rosie Perez.
Shut the hell up.
I
Chuck
swear to
Liddell
God,
and Rosie Perez.
both getting off the elevator. And Chuck Liddell was the height of, he was the. I don't know if he had just retired for the first of 100 times or something, but he was the
The
man right
UFC
then.
champion, if some of y'all don't know, the former UFC champion Chuck Liddell.
Rosie looked.
And Rosie
Rosie looked
Perez,
great.
the esteemed great actress.
Oh, legend! She's a cat. She won the Academy Award, right?
She's
She
amazing.
was
She's
nominated.
amazing. Amazing.
It was just super cool. I mean, I didn't really interact with them that much, but that was just one of the many episodes. There were so many. What you got to understand, dude, is there were so many little episodes connected. Like we could do two more episodes just about the experience at Harris. I'll never forget my very first day going to work at King Magazine. I had to take the train to J Street in Brooklyn with a couple of heat lamps. And I didn't really know what I had to do with these heat lamps except bring them to this building. Ironically, a building I used to work in like only a year or two before at another magazine, a local magazine. And when I get there, my contact tells me that I have to go to the roof.
What?
So I go to the roof with the two heat lamps, right? And I mean, I could look, I would have to like go digging in the crates, but I go to the roof and there's a girl, like, it's a cold ass day, dude. It's like January, you know? And there's a girl, like, basically in like almost nothing, laying out laying out, laying
Shout
out
out
like
to her.
I don't even know who she was, laying out on a table, right? And in the background is like the beautiful New York City skyline, like that's like serving as the backdrop of this photo shoot.
Oh
It's like
wow.
she's on like a table or like some type of platform, and it was really crazy, man. Like working, there was never a dull, like there was just never a dull moment at that place. All of a sudden you'd be sitting down and Capone and Noriega would show up. Uh,
Woo! CNN. Oh
you know,
yes,
it,
CNN.
dude, those guys were the best. Those guys were the friendliest guys. Capone, nicest guy. Like I told him I was from Elmhurst, and he's like, yo, what train go over there? And I was like, oh, I'm by the Grand Avenue and Newtown stop. He's like, oh, by the magic shop, by the trick shop. I
Right,
know, I
right.
know. And he was just a super cool guy, man. Like you know, like listen, you know, we might have to do this again at some point, just
Well, we
because
definitely will, and we thank you so much
yeah,
for
let's
coming
catch
on the
up again
actual.
sometime. But
Yeah,
it was
man,
fun
we
talking
thank
to
you
you.
so much for coming on the podcast and giving us a few stories of the millions of stories. The next time I get you on, you have to tell the story of when you met Little Wayne.
Oh, that's
That
a fun
story and the
story.
story with Jamal Crawford. The people need to know those stories. So y'all stay in tune for the very next episode of Crush Mikes with the world traveled, even though he's definitely modest, the world travel Matt Caputo. Once again, man, thank you so much for being on the show, man. We
Corey,
thank
thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
me. Let's do this again.
Yes, yes, yes. We thank y'all for being on another episode of Crush Mics. As always, y'all stay safe. Don't touch each other. Stop having these big gatherings, man. And keep the love. Crush
Wash
Mics.
your hands.
Wash your hands. Bye, guys.